Before I do say what the title of the movie is, I give you a little hint of what it is. It's a time travel movie. Yeah, time travel. Okay, so time travel movies can be a somewhat hit and miss. You've got good ones like I don't know. Well, oh yeah, you've got movies like Somewhere in Time, Avengers Endgame, what's a time travel movie? You got The Time Traveler's Wife, which was a hit and miss. Uh, Bill and Ted, the one with Keanu Reeves in it, that's a time travel movie as well. But there's one time travel movie in particular that not many people talk about, and it is, of course, one of my favourite films, Kate and Leopold. Oh, this young, charismatic bloke called Leopold, played by Hugh Jackman, who travels to New York in that time frame, sorry, and his uncle, who is a total bollocks, by the way, wants him to get married to this woman, sorry, called Miss Tree, played by Kirsten Shaw, because she has like the most wealth, and of course he's got hardly any money. I don't know why he has no money, but there you go. And he spots this mysterious guy who takes photos of him, called Stuart Bezer, played by Liev Schreiber, who also starred Hugh Jackman in X-Men Origins Wolverine. He was Sabretooth and he was Wolverine, Hugh Jackman was. So Leopold decides to follow Stuart, and what happens after that? Well, let's just say that he takes a leap of faith by jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge accidentally, and he ends up in our world in 2001. Sounds familiar? Yeah, it does. It's exactly the same as Enchanted, which I reviewed before, by the way. Another good film as well. So then we see Meg Ryan. She plays Kate in this movie, a cynical, no nonsense businesswoman who works as a marketing executive. Now, depending on which one you watch, there's two different versions. Two different versions, by the way. This movie. There's one which is a theatrical version, and then there's another one where it's a director's cut, which kind of spoils the ending, which I'll get to later on, by the way. So yeah, there's like a James Mangold um cameo in the one I see, and the one I've seen, and then there's another one like where you just see her like come out of an elevator because the elevator stopped working since Leopold comes into our world. So later on in the movie, we get to see Kate, who finally meets Leopold, and the two of them at first don't see eye to eye because she thinks that he's crazy because he's this Duke from 19th century, sorry, and she's from the 21st century, and she is totally against love because here's the kicker: her ex-boyfriend of 4 years was the guy that Leopold followed in 1876, Stuart Bezer, who is a time traveler. I guess the reason why, by the way, he goes to 1876 in the first place, Stuart, is because he is a descendant of Leopold. He's his great great grandson. Yeah. Oh God. So yeah. Of course, later on in the movie, Leopold and Kate, they fall in love with one another. But of course, he has like a week to go back to his own time frame. So will he go back to his own time frame? Well, you have to find out. Oh God, there are so many scenes in this movie that I love. By the way, there's like a horse chase scene which I was like, wow, if only I was Meg Ryan right now and just go on that horse. Then there's another scene where Leopold is doing this commercial for butter, and he goes, "Fresh creamery butter. Is there anything more comforting?" When he said that line, I was like this. Yeah, that was me in a nutshell. And to see the horse chasing, yeah, the horse chasing bit I said before. Then there's this rooftop dinner scene which was so cheesy, but I loved it. Like Leopold teaches Kate how to dance, and she starts laughing, and he starts laughing at her, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't think I can take a leap." And I was like, "Oh my God, kiss him!" And then they go on this tour to New York together and like to see like the different areas of New York that Leopold didn't see before. And then he comes across his old home, like where his uncle's from, and he opens up this thing. It's like a what you call it, a skirting board. And I was like, what is he doing? Trespassing and just open up a skirting board. And then there's this fox. Has a ring in it, and I'm like, oh my god. And then there's this scene where like Kate tells him like, oh, I've been in New York for 10 years and I've never travelled ever. And I was like, you have never seen anywhere else on New York City. Girl, what did you do to your life in the last God knows when? And then of course, there's this like guy who lives like across the street from Kate who is obsessed with Breakfast at Tiffany's. Oh yeah, Breakfast at Tiffany's is involved as well. There's like a nod to that movie. And I remember like seeing this scene where Kate is like all snuggled up to Leopold and he tries to propose to her, and I was like, wake up, Kate. Do you not know that Leopold is actually proposing to you? You're like this going, and I'm like, wake the fuck up. And then of course it's like, it's time to go to bed. Then they go to bed together, and then of course you're all like, oh, this is great now. Leopold and Kate are finally going to be together. Then of course there's conflict, like in every romantic comedy, where he tries this how was oh yeah, Farmer's Bounty it is the name of the butter that Kate was marketing. And of course, he absolutely hates it. He thinks it's detestable. He doesn't know why Kate is still doing the job that she wants to do. And of course, Leopold sadly has to go back to 1876. Boo hoo hoo. So then, of course, there's now this is spoiler mode now. So it turns out that Kate is meant to be with Leopold because she was in the photos that Stuart, her ex boyfriend, took. Um, and of course, Charlie, who I forgot to mention, Charlie, played by Brecklin Meyer, he becomes best mates with Leopold. Like, he brings him to town, and Leopold helps Charlie win the girl called Patrice, I think her name is. And he gives her flowers and all that crack, and they go on a date and everything. I forgot to mention him, by the way. He's funny, by the way, that movie. So of course, Kate has this big promotion. She's like, oh, I have this big promotion. Her ex is like, okay, you have to go back to Brooklyn you have to like jump off of Brooklyn Bridge in less than 20 minutes or you'll be like, bye bye. So what does she do? She decides, you know what? Screw this job of marketing. I'm going back to 1876. And she ends up being with Leopold in the end. Just as he was about to announce his marriage to what's her face, that ugly one, Miss Tree, he was like, it's an honor to make your acquaintance. And I was like, oh my god. Why? 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 So then, of course, Leopold sees Kate. He ends up announcing her as his new bride. They admit they love each other, like in all rom-coms, and they dance, and that gorgeous smile that Hugh Jackman has. Oh god. And that's it. That's the movie in a nutshell. That's the movie in a nutshell. So what do I really think about Kate and Leopold? Okay, overall, I really, really love this movie. There, I said it. I love this movie. It reminds me of Enchanted, the one with Amy Adams and Patrick Dempsey, only the roles were switched and that. It was like Enchanted is like a musical, but Kate and Leopold isn't. It's kind of like a cross between Pride and Prejudice meets Summer in Time, which is another movie that I like as well. But yeah, the real showstopper for this movie is Hugh Jackman. I swear to God, every scene that he is in, and he's sporting a British accent, by the way, because he's really Australian, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, this guy must be from England. And then I didn't know that he was from Australia until like a couple of years after I saw the film, and I was like, oh my god, Hugh Jackman's an Australian? What? Because his English accent is spot on, by the way, but yeah, oh god, he was so handsome in this movie. I have like a massive crush on him, even up to today. at the age of 29, I still think he's the most attractive looking bloke ever. I mean, seriously, just look at his face. He's just, oh my god. He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, he sweeps every woman off their feet, like Meg Ryan, for example. I was like, oh my god. When I was watching that film, I was like, this going, man, I wish I was Meg Ryan in this scene, or I wish I was Meg Ryan in that scene. And yeah, Meg Ryan, speaking of her, it was kind of hilarious seeing her in this film without Tom Hanks because she's usually collabing with him in a lot of films. She collabed with Tom Hanks in Joe versus the Volcano, which I never saw, by the way. Sleeps in Seattle, and there's another one, You've Got Mail. So to see her in a film without Tom Hanks, I was like, wow, this is a surprise. But her character at first, I'm not gonna lie, was a bitch. I absolutely hated her character first in this film. She was total bitchy throughout the whole thing. She was always moaning, always groaning. Here I was going, by God, will you ever just cop on and just see love for what it really is? And then there's this guy, played by Bradley Whiteford, who was in Bicentennial Man, by the way. He plays a sleazy boss of Kate, who is always constantly hitting on her. He's like, "Oh, you haven't kissed me yet. Oh, we've been on this date, and you..." And of course, there's one scene in the movie which had me laughing with Bradley Whiteford and Hugh Jackman, where Hugh Jackman's character's like, what does he say at all? Oh yeah, he goes on about this like, oh, well, do you speak French? And he like, your man tries to speak French, goes, oh, and then Leopold comes along, he starts speaking French, and Meg Ryan's like, oh, what did she say? And he's like, oh, how sweet, whatever. I forget the thing, but it's just so dreamy the way he says it. And yeah, and I go, and then he says to Bradley Whiteford's character, "Oh, you know less French than I do." And by the way, it's Italian that he was mentioning about some play that he saw. Um, yeah, what else? Liev Schreiber. Okay, this movie, I have never seen any other Liev Schreiber film except this one, X Men Origins Wolverine, and I think there was another one, Spotlight. But this one, Kate Leopold, he was hilarious in this film. Liev Schreiber, he was hilarious. He plays this quirky scientist who's so obsessed with time, so obsessed with like loopholes and all this crack and ancestors and all that, and I was like, oh my god. And Meg Ryan's character did not get him at all, even though she dated him for like what, 4 years. Um, so yeah. Is there any nitpick with this movie? Okay, there is one nitpick of this movie, and it's gotta be the whole jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge. The reason why I found it kind of was because it didn't, like, I seen in that scene when it did happen with the jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge was you have Leopold and Stewart jump off the bridge, and then you hear this, and that's it, and you're like, what? What's going on? What? It did not make. I mean, their clothes weren't even wet for crying out loud. Even when Meg Ryan, the end, jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge to beat Leopold, I was like, wow, she isn't even wet, and she jumped off the fucking bridge to be with this man that she really loves, and it took her God knows when to find him, by the way. I mean, she's just pure, like, she's clean. She's just dry. Pure, plain and simple. She's like dry when she meets Leopold, and I was like, oh, shouldn't she be wet? But I think, though, the more times I watched this film, there was like a black hole or something, because there had to be a black hole in this movie. Um, but yeah, overall, I like this movie a lot. If you haven't seen Kate and Leopold, do watch the film. I give it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. It's cute, it's predictable, it's romantic, and it's an awful crying shame that we haven't gotten another romantic comedy with Hugh Jackman in it, because let's face it, this guy is a total leading man. I mean, he should have been in rom-coms all his life, but I suppose he didn't want to be typecast because a lot of actors, like the likes of Matthew McConaughey, see, he started off doing rom-coms. He's not doing them anymore. Tom Hanks is another one that was the king of rom-coms, but he was like, screw them, I'm doing more action-packed movies, which does now. But I guess that's why Hugh Jackman didn't bother doing any more rom-coms after this film. He did like 2 rom-coms in 2001. There was Someone Like You, which had oh god, what you call it one? Ashley Judd, and it had Greg Kinnear in it, and he was like a womanizer in that film. And then you have him Kate Leopold, where he plays the complete opposite of that character they played in Someone Like You. The whole charismatic noble man who sweeps women off their feet, and you're like, this guy's too good to be true. I mean, why can't men not be like him in real life? I may never know. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, like I said, do watch it. My advice, though, if you are looking to watch this film, I highly suggest you watch the director's cut. The director's cut of this movie is actually more straightforward than the theatrical one, because the theatrical one you haven't got a clue. Like, there's no mention at all about Stewart being related to Leopold. You don't see Meg Ryan in the beginning of the movie, which I thought spoiled it, by the way. But hey, at least you knew like how she got there in the first place and why she was meant to be with him. And then, like I said before, there was a cameo of James Mangold, who's the director of the movie, by the way, in the director's cut. And there's this screening that Kate sees that's like a rom com, and they're like, your man's like, oh, you're killing cinema, which I thought was a clever idea, by the way. You're killing cinema. James Mangold's character said in that director's cut. And there was a song as well by Vanessa Williams called "Save the Best for Last," which was in the director's cut, but not in the theatrical one, which got a lot of hate, by the way. Oh, sorry, it wasn't the theatrical cut that got a lot of hate, it was the director's cut, sorry, because they thought, the critics were like, oh my god, this is so weird having your ex-girlfriend or your ex-boyfriend's ancestors to bang their ex, and you're like, what the fuck? But I thought it was a clever movie. It's like, not many people talk about that film at all, but to me, I thought it was a very cute film, and yeah, and I love Meg Ryan. It's a pity that she doesn't act anymore, but yeah, that's me anyway. For this review for Kate and Leopold. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen the film. What you think of it? Is there any scenes you like in this film? Is there any scenes you don't like about this movie? And until next time, take care.